Hi, guys. Thanks so much for coming back to the Let It Go, Flow, and Grow podcast. I am your host, Rubes. And happy Thursday. I am releasing this episode a little bit late. I wasn't able to record as early as I wanted to, but that's okay because I'm still going to get it done. Today, we're going to be talking all about reincarnation and past lives. And if you can see the video, I don't know if you've noticed anything different, but I have like purple red hair now, which is awesome. I have my piercing back in just like I did last week. And yeah, it's been a good week so far. And like I said last week, I wanted to integrate more things that I have been learning through my journaling. So here goes. Um, the first thing that I ended up learning this week was that I realized that I did not feel as though jealousy was an acceptable emotion to have. So that was that was pretty eye opening, and I ended up passing my like universal test about it very quickly because of that, which is awesome because that ended up bringing in more blessings. Woohoo! So I'm really proud of myself. But basically, I ended up meeting this girl at work that I really like, and I ended up getting kind of defensive with her because I just got into like this new skill and trade job that I'm doing. And I have some experience from the past, but not a lot. And she has a lot more experience than me. But we ended up getting hired for this company at the same time. And I realized that she reminded me a lot of two of my old close friends who are sadly not in my life anymore. Um, and so as I kind of dove a little bit deeper into my subconscious and I sat down with these different parts of myself, I realized that I was jealous of her. And I have always been told that jealousy is not an acceptable emotion because the way that I grew up, um, and I touched on this last episode, I grew up in a very prep kind of school because I grew up in a private school after facing a lot of poverty and hardship for the first small part of my life until I ended up getting taken in by my grandparents. And something about me and a few other kids that I went to school with is that I think the school was like $18,000 a year or something like that. Um, Something like that. And then I think whenever you got to high school, it was like 20,000 or something. And so I was I was on scholarship at my school because of the situation with my family. We weren't like impoverished. Like there was always food on the table and everything like that. Um, we were very blessed. But at the same time, we definitely weren't as wealthy as the people that I was surrounded by, because they had two working parents, or well, yeah, most of them had two working parents with good jobs and nice houses, which is again not a bad thing. However, growing up, I learned very young that it was not okay to be jealous of the people around me. And that was very much like pushed on to me that, like, I do have it good in comparison to the life that I had been living prior to that, like whenever I was 5 years old, dumpster diving, things along those lines, going from that to actually having a bed and being taken care of and always having food on the table. And that's not to like harp on, my parents, but it's just how it was. And um, so very young, I learned it is not okay to be jealous of the people that are around you because it can make you a very bitter person. So, moving and fast forwarding to where we are now, I realized that anytime that any sort of jealousy has ever come up for me, I have repressed it. I have immediately said to myself, no, 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 that is not an acceptable emotion. We are not allowed to feel that. And then I would end up repressing it and beating myself internally for even having that emotion pop up at all, instead of sitting down and realizing, oh, wow, I'm feeling kind of jealous of this person. And instead of, so where the line is of how jealousy can turn toxic is like, it's okay for any emotion to come up, right? What's not okay is to have that emotion fester so much that it ends up changing your behaviors and actions towards other people. So it's okay if you have jealousy come up, you know, because that means that you admire something about that person that you don't, that maybe you don't have. Um, and whenever it becomes not okay, sorry, I started losing my train of thought. Um, Whenever it becomes not okay is whenever you start to let it fester and let it change your behavior towards that person, because you don't get down to the root of why you're jealous. And so I ended up realizing and accepting the fact and sitting with the fact of this embarrassment, this like secondary emotion that I felt of embarrassment, because I realized that I was jealous of this person. And then I kind of sat there and I was like, I don't think that I don't think that being jealous of this person is really necessary, because I started to realize I think this person has a lot more experience than I do, and I don't even realize it. Like, I don't even know how many years, like, this person could be doing this for 5 years and I don't even know because I haven't asked. And also, I just think that this person is very pretty and I think they're very nice, and I think that we would get along great if I can just get past this hurdle. So I decided that I was going to approach her the next day and apologized for the fact that I had gotten defensive or like prior. And then I asked her how many years she had been in this business, and she said that she's been in this business for 2 years, almost three now. And I was like, oh, yeah, I've only been in this business for like 2 months. And she was like, oh my God, like I had no idea. Um, like I will make sure to remember that and, use every opportunity as a teaching moment versus using it as like a I can't believe that you don't know this kind of thing. Because I guess a lot of people thought that I had like been in this business for a really long time because of the way that I carry myself. And I do have like experience from growing up. But it wasn't at this level that I'm working now. So yeah, that was nice. And then I found out that, so one of the other reasons that I had some jealousy towards her was because I felt like she had more friends than I did. And then I found out that she actually has been feeling more isolated because she doesn't know a lot of people with this company. So I'm hoping that I can use that as an maybe a way to help her make more friends and like get to know more people. Because I love this company very, very much and I'm very grateful. So I was really happy with that. And now everything's good between her and I. I don't even think that she like realized. Maybe she did. I don't know. But I just was able to kind of sit with that and not let it fester, and get down to the root of why I felt jealous. And now it's fine, it's all good. And instead of me being envious or jealous of the traits that she has, I just sit there and I admire her. So that's good. So I was happy about that. That's something that I learned this week. Another thing that I ended up learning this week was I saw this video on TikTok about this guy who, it was kind of like a skit, and I guess it was a skit. And so the person in the front of the vehicle, which is also him, but they're driving the car and they end up falling asleep at the wheel, and then he has to wake them up. And he realizes very quickly from the back seat that this person doesn't know where they're going in life, and that they're like, yeah, I don't know where I'm going. There's no brakes, but I'm just going to keep going. And he's like, oh, where are we going? And he's like, I don't know. And they're like, he's like, oh, well, we got to stop the car. We have to get out of the car. And he's like, I know where I'm going, but we should figure it out. And the person, I mean, it's him, but like the person who was driving was like, oh, yeah, if I wanted to like go to a specific place and get out of the car, I would. but I'm not physically holding you back from getting out of the car. And it was funny because all the comments are like, this isn't about the car, is it? And it's definitely a big metaphor for letting go. Um, and that if somebody doesn't want to change, that you can't force them to change. And so I ended up sitting with that as well, because I ended up, um, I have a lot of anger with myself for how angry I get with certain people whenever they don't show up for me the way that they have promised to. And I guess it was an ancestor that came through. Maybe it was God. But I ended up getting a channeled message that, say, and I post this on my TikTok, but like, um, say that you make plans with someone and you're supposed to go to this coffee shop, and then the person ends up showing up and you just don't show up. And they call you and they call you and they text you and all these things, and they're trying to get a hold of you all day, and they're worried about you. They're worried that you might have gotten into a car crash or whatever it may be. And then finally, 10 hours later, you pick up the phone and they say, oh, hey, like, what, like, are you okay? And you're like, oh, yeah, no, like, sorry, like, I just forgot about our plans. And then you say, or, actually, I just didn't want to go. And they say, oh, why, are you busy, and you say, no, 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 actually today was, I didn't do anything today. I just laid on the couch and watched TV, or maybe I played video games, or whatever it may be. And Yeah, I just didn't want to go. um would you expect that person that you stood up to be mad at you? Because I know I would expect them to be mad at me. um and so the question is, why are you, or why was I beating myself up for reacting normally to someone who doesn't show up time and time and time again? Um, and so, yeah, that was something that I sat with today as well. Because I get really, really angry with myself and beat myself up internally for getting angry with other people, because I don't like getting angry with anyone, especially my loved ones. So, yeah, so that's something else that I'm still, I guess, processing and working through. And it made me think of that video about the jumping out of the video and hitting the ground. And no matter how hard it hurts to hit the ground after you jump out of the car, sometimes it'll be the best thing for you. So, anyways, moving forward into the rest of the episode, like I said previously, we're going to be talking all about reincarnation and past lives. And I always have a fun fact for you, as usual. Okay, it's a very short fun fact today, but did you know that your tongue can feel any object without you even actually licking it? Think about that. Carpet? Yep. Wall? Mm-hmm. Anything. Think about it. Okay. Okay, so let's start off with, what is reincarnation? The definition of reincarnation is the belief that a dead person's spirit returns to life in another body. Some believe that this can happen for animals and not just people, and you probably have heard of that thermodynamics law, that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So if you took physics at all growing up, then this would align with that. And the question is, what theologies actually believe in reincarnation? That includes Buddhism, Hinduism, uh, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to say that, Jainism, and Sikhism. And I personally found out about it whenever I was researching Buddhism many, many years ago, which actually is a philosophy, not necessarily a religion, at least from my understanding, or perhaps it can be. Um, but yeah, it's not necessarily about like worshiping Buddha, or anything. It's more about reaching the same enlightenment as he had, which, now that I think about it, maybe people do worship Buddha, just like they worship Jesus. I just made a connection. Anyways, more of a belief in the Indian region includes reincarnation. However, I've noticed that it also is becoming more of an accepted belief in the Western culture. And in India, this is why the cow is considered a sacred being, and they cannot be killed or even shoot off the roads because that might be your cousin. And you don't even realize. And the cows are seen as a more sacred life due to the good karma done in a previous life. They are considered a quote unquote high birth, and that protecting them will always keep you on the good side of karma. So it makes me wonder what India thinks of the meat market in America. Yeah, that makes me wonder. Personally, I love cows. They do have family systems and they can form emotional attachments. And they can also get very excited whenever they solve intellectual problems and they remember faces. It's interesting because pigs are as intelligent as 3-year-old children as well. And many animals are actually much more intelligent than we give them credit for, especially elephants. They actually have the largest brain of all animals, which is even bigger than humans. So, just, food for thought. And let's go over how reincarnation works. So, some key phrases that might be brought up are samsara, which is birth, death, and rebirth. And if you have ever been on the spiritual slash healing path, then you're probably familiar with this cycle, or if you've ever like dove into tarot or anything like that. And a lot of us go through deaths and rebirths through our entire lives because we break old thought patterns, old ways of living, and after a while, our old mold per se and our thought processes, they don't fit us anymore because we have outgrown them. That's death and rebirth. Now we go through deaths in our life, perhaps like relationships, jobs, thought processes, etc. And then we start the birth of new chapters in our lives, and we are reborn, right? So, however, with reincarnation, this is done on a much grander scale. So, reincarnation helps us to complete the things and lessons that we did not get to complete in the previous lives. So, things that we didn't learn in the previous lifetimes, we come back and we have to learn them in the next lifetime. And it also encapsulates any pain or loss that was not atoned for in previous lives. So, it makes me wonder if that's why Jesus came to help us, to like break us out of that cycle of reincarnation. Um, so yeah, that was going through my mind. Anyways, with reincarnation, we have the intuitive understanding that we cannot spiritually advance until we have healed and learned the lessons from our previous lives on Earth. Personally, I believe that we don't have to only reincarnate on Earth. We are actually able to reincarnate into other spaces as well, like other galaxies or universes, planets, I guess is the way to put that. However, Earth, as from my understanding, is one of the hardest schools for our souls because we have to forget everything and then we come here and experience being human. And the whole point is we have to come back to the realization and remembrance of our true nature, that we all come from God, source, creator, that we are all connected. And so that makes it a very, very difficult task because I think if we remembered who we really were immediately, then things would be way easier, right? Um, Karma is whenever you have to live the same experience that you put others through. So this is why it is so important to treat others as you want to be treated, and just to move with love. Because if you harm others with your words or actions, then in the next life, you'll have to come back and be the one that is harmed or treated in that way that you treated others prior. And this is done to balance the scales. But where people end up getting lost or stuck is whenever they do not choose to learn from the experiences and rather keep them repeated, thus causing them stuck in those same cycles. But we have to move from that ego mindset to our higher self, right? So our super ego, So we have to move. Like I said, I know I explained this in a different episode, but I'll give a little refresher. The Freudian understanding is that we have the id, the ego, and the superego, whereas the id is our primal, the ego is how we perceive ourselves and everyone, how we think that others perceive us and how we perceive others, right? And then our superego is our higher understanding. That's our moral ground. Okay, so if we're trying to move from id and ego to superego, which is our higher self, we can do that, but it does take time, and it's usually done by meditation, getting to know yourself, and spending time in silence, and truly understanding what you want and what your soul or like what you stand for. Our ego likes to keep us in fear and it tries to keep us safe. So it keeps us away from authenticity, whereas our soul wants us to be free and understands that we can do anything that we want if we are willing to detach from each experience that we come across in our lives, which is funny because I made another TikTok video about that today because whenever I was having my morning coffee with God, he was explaining that, whenever you're authentic and you show up authentically, you force other people to be authentic. And sadly, a lot of people were shamed and shunned for being authentic. So whenever you show up and you kind of force people to stand in their truth by standing in yours, it makes them uncomfortable. And sometimes that can make people really angry and that makes them not like you. And it makes you think of like the whole, like, well, why do they get to be authentic and I don't? And it's like, oh, well, you have that opportunity as well. But that's why it's so important for you to stand authentically so that you can show to others it's okay to be yourself and to step into your power, which takes time. And that's okay. Because I think a lot of us have been shunned from a very, very young age for being our authentic self. But it feels really nice to take the mask off. And honestly, I've learned that not everyone masks. So I've wondered for a while now, am I autistic? Because I found out that masking is not normal. But I don't know if it's autism or just like severe PTSD, um, which is just, or maybe I don't know. I don't like being fake. And wearing the mask after a while gets so hot and like the mask gets really tight. And then I end up not being able to breathe and I have to take it off. And then sometimes people like my authentic self and sometimes they don't. But I've kind of just been working on this understanding that if somebody doesn't like my authentic self, then they probably aren't the right person for me. Yeah. I've also been practicing the affirmation that other people's opinion about me is none of my business. So, yeah. And it's nice whenever you are authentic because it brings you people that are on that same wavelength as you, and you don't even have to try, and you can have all of the belly laughter and all of the smiles. And it's just like, finally, like I can breathe and I don't have to worry about someone trying to suffocate me because they don't feel comfortable in their own skin. So, anyways, moving forward. So it is also believed that we will reincarnate with our soul family so that we can all heal the past karmas that we have gone through in previous lives, either with one another or with others that we meet. So it's always important to ask instead of why is this happening, asking what can I learn from this experience, which is a lot easier said than done sometimes, but that's why it's important to like slow down and journal and have that connection with yourself and whomever you work with, spirit, which I consider creator. I don't know how that works. I don't know. Anyway, now I'm going to go down a rabbit hole and I don't need to. Anyways, but it's just important to reflect. Yeah, this is why reflection is so important, and moving away from quote unquote getting even is also important because at the end of the day, if you're only focused on revenge, then how are you supposed to balance your karmic scales, right? Let go and let God, or let the universe, or whomever you feel connected to take care of things. And then you don't have to get your hands dirty per se. You can just let karma balance it out and let your karma balance out as well. At the end of the day, it's all about how the collective consciousness needs to move forward versus just your one fragment. But I know that that's really hard to remember sometimes, which I get that a lot. I struggled with that this week, so I get it. Um, our soul families have similar vibrations, and we only attract things that are in the same vibrations as ourself. So with reincarnation, they usually are describing our physical parents, but there is a belief that we will reincarnate with the same physical families. Oh, my bad. I meant to say not our physical families, um, or not our physical parents. But there is the belief that we might reincarnate with the same physical families throughout lifetimes, whether we are the son or the daughter in one lifetime and the parent in the next, on the different constellations or this planet that we call Earth. So, again, I'll repeat that. With reincarnation, we might be describing our physical parents and families, but we might not. Instead, basically, a soul family is just your soul family. And if you've met soul family already, which I'm sure you have, that one person that just like gets you, and you guys are just on that same wavelength, they don't have to be blood, like brother from a different mother kind of thing. You know what I mean? That could be your soul family. Um, so yeah, it's that's what I mean by soul family. It doesn't necessarily have to be your physical parents, but it can be, and a lot of times it is. Or like it, that's just like who you need to clear out karma with. So um, our actions through our lifetimes chain us together, with our family or with our soul family or whomever we've hurt or whomever has hurt us in a way because of the karma that has occurred. So until the lessons are learned and balanced, these ties that we have to others are usually stuck. But when you do learn the lessons and balance the karma, the chains will be loosened, and sooner than later, they will be broken off. This is a similar thought process to breaking generational curses in a way. It's not the exact same, but it's kind of that similar thought process. Usually, with the people that we meet, they have some sort of significance in our life, and there's some sort of karma that needs to be balanced out. And I've actually been thinking about this a lot lately because I've been thinking about life as like a play, and the fact that usually with work, honestly, with a lot of people, but usually with work, I've realized that I have met so many of like the same tropes per se, in different jobs. So like the same type of person, but in different bodies, at different places that I've worked. And the reason is because, yeah, you're probably going to meet that same person at different places and that same type of person at different places that you go. Not necessarily, though. I don't like that being part of my reality. But I also realized the reason I keep running into these same people is because I need to, deal with the lessons that, I have been hesitant to learn from them. Um, so, yeah, I realized that. Um, it's like, oh, yeah, our office always has that one gossip or whatever it may be, or that one person that hates their life or whatever it is. It's like meeting the same person but in different fonts. It's just, how you react to it whenever you meet them again. So yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. But anyways, usually whenever we reincarnate, we do not know about the reincarnation process because it is not important, for every soul to know of this phenomenon. Instead, we'll have a quote unquote book of wisdom that is assigned to their region. For example, the Quran, the Torah, the Kabbalah, the Bible, etc., etc. And every single one has it worded in different ways, but they all say, do not do to others what you would not want done to you. I'm going to say that again. Do not do to others what you do not want done to you, which is what Jesus was mentioning about, like, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Like, don't treat others how you don't want to be treated. I was just reading this last night about don't judge others because you will be judged the same way that they were judged, right? To that same extent. Okay. We sadly usually forget about these basic life rules. For example, the 10 Commandments for Western culture, but we have so many distractions that we're hit with and so many temptations that we forget easily. Um, so instead, we're hit with materialism, greed, selfishness, etc., etc. And then new karma is created, causing the cycle to be furthered because even though we have been taught, or maybe we haven't, but most of the time we've been taught or have the accessibility to be taught these different rules of life, um, and we forget about it because we get so distracted by a bunch of other stuff. So it can be definitely difficult to remember the greater understanding that whenever someone treats you poorly, it is done for you to learn something from that experience. Most of us just turn to revenge, and therefore we elongate our karma because, again, the lesson is not learned in this life. So then you have to come back in the next life and learn it again, perhaps with a different person. And I wrote here, have you ever noticed that you'll get stuck in the same cycle but with different people? This is a way for you to be able to clear the karma and learn the lessons, which is funny because I was just talking about that today, earlier, with that opening part that I did with that girl that I was getting envious of, and then what I was just saying, how I keep meeting the same people. So, um moving forward, it's important to live consciously and practice that awareness, because that can move us away from repeating the same lessons over and over, and it can move us more into balancing the karma and actually learning the lessons. Because you will be tested again and again in this life, and the tests might get harder or stay the same. Excuse me. But it's whether or not you're going to stay in that same ego or victim mentality, or you're going to learn and actually act differently this time. And now I feel like I'm calling myself out. So like I said, I get it. It's not easy, but it does in fact get easier. So after a while, you'll realize that you're getting tested. The more self-aware you become, you just realize that you're getting tested. And if you're living consciously, then you can choose to react differently. You don't have to react the same. You can break the cycle. But that's where that inner work comes from, and learning your triggers. So you can do it if you set your mind to it. So I promise that, because I have broken a lot of cycles. And if I can do it, you can do it. I promise. So I think I needed this reminder for sure. So, us not remembering our previous lives, yes, has some keys and tools with it, but you carry that in your soul. And we do not remember these things because we're meant to live in the here and now. But some of the keys and the tools that you have are so ingrained in your soul that they'll come out in a more natural form. So you might naturally be more empathetic than others. But it's important to stay in this present moment, and that's what mindfulness and meditation are all about. My grandmother recommended a book for me a long time ago, and it was called The Power of Now. It's definitely helpful to listen to or read, or The Four Agreements, as I did that previous episode on. That's also a great book to look into. If you have lived hundreds of lives and did terrible things in those lives, it would not be helpful to know them now, as they might influence you in the way that you react and move today. So that's why it's like we don't need to remember every single life that we've lived. Sometimes it's important to remember maybe one life or here or there, but definitely not all of them. And it is said that reincarnation was originally a part of the Christian teachings, but was later banned by a Roman emperor, which honestly makes a lot of sense because personally it feels so extremely correct to me, um, because it just feels accurate at a soul level. And I've been learning more about Gnosticism, so I'm wondering if maybe it's tied into that because that has like the teachings from Mary Magdalene. Um, so that's been something that I've been very interested in lately. Some believe that the reason that deja vu happens is because of reincarnation, because it is us going through the same cycles and things that we have already lived in a different life. And I've also heard that deja vu is whenever parallel realities are doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. Some say that deja vu is leaving us clues from our future selves to help steer us in the best direction for our lives. And I always recommend watching The Egg Theory on YouTube. I think it's a great representation of reincarnation and the reasoning behind all of this. Are some small bits that I don't necessarily agree with overall, but I think it really exemplifies what reincarnation is trying to state. So, So you might be asking yourself, how does karma work? So with every action that we do, it is entered into basically like a computer like database, which is called the Akashic Records. And that stores all of our thoughts, all of our emotions and actions from whenever we are human. It is the law that you reap whatever you have sown. And once these actions have been processed and completed, then you will reap the rewards, aka the karma from those actions. Sometimes it can sometimes take up to lifetimes for us to reap the rewards, and other times it's immediate. So there is also a law of grace, and this ties into repenting for the deeds that we have done and feeling the sincerity of the apology because we have truly deeply felt what the other person went through. And this remorse that we carry will help us to not commit the crime that caused the karmic debt ever again. Only until the other person forgives us, though, and our amends are made, will the karma be truly balanced and cleared out. This only works if we change our behavior and move differently. If that person does not forgive us, then we are bound to that person until that person does forgive us. Our offspring will carry that info into the next generation, which is like generational trauma, like the muddy soccer ball that I talked about in one of my first episodes, where it gets like passed down from person to person, and you get that muddy, like you get a soccer ball and then your next generation plays with it and makes it muddy, and then they pass it down and makes it muddier, and they just keep passing it down until you just have like a ball of mud that you're passing down from generation to generation. Yeah, that's what a generational trauma or generational curse is like. That's exactly, it ties into it all. um, so the way to be able to break the karma and generational curses again is to understand that we have a choice to move differently, as I said earlier, and do. I think the best way. Someone told me this a long time ago. Is karma will always be on the side on your side if you moved in the way that you thought was best. So there's also a lot of evidence of past lives. So that is something that I actually really enjoy looking into. Some believe that deja vu is proof enough. There's also a Amazon show, on Amazon Prime, that's called The Ghost Inside My Child. Um, Great books that you can read on reincarnation include The Journey of Souls by Michael Newton, which he actually stumbled upon past lives by accident. He was doing regression hypnosis, I believe, or hypnosis. And then whenever they were getting into the root cause of it, he ended up going into like a past life. And then over time, he ended up finding a bunch of different clients were talking about past lives, and a lot of them had similarities. So, There's also other books by Dolores Cannon. And I have also heard that the book Many Lives, Many Masters is a good one. Personally, I have not read it, but it's been recommended to me. And if you have connections to certain places from growing up, that could be a sign that you either have ancestral ties there or you lived there in a past life. So, for example, growing up, I was really obsessed with Peru, like really obsessed with Peru. I didn't know why, but I was probably because of the llamas. I think that was a big part of it. But I liked the food. I just so I wouldn't be surprised if I have um either ancestral ties there with my lineage, or maybe I lived past lives there as an ancestor, could be. But I definitely want to visit. It's on my bucket list. So yeah, I don't know. It just seems very interesting. Hmm. Yeah. Anyways, so I got a past life reading done as well. That I realized that I posted on my previous podcast, so not that one. So I have to find it here in just a second, and then I'll play it for you guys. Um, And then I know that I went over dreams and astral projection in the previous episode. Um, but I've also had dreams of what I believe are past lives. So that's always interesting because it feels so extremely vivid. And I found a couple of Reddit posts from people remembering their past lives. But before I read through those Reddit posts, I want to play you this past life regression therapy that I did from this guy at the Body Mind Spirit Expo a few years ago. So just a second. Okay, so bad news. I ended up going through all of my old like videos and everything, and I cannot find this video, and now I feel really bummed because I think that I accidentally deleted it whenever I was trying to like clear my stuff out, which sucks. Um, but I'll give you like kind of well, I'll say this, it kind of worked out because I was able to, I found like some goofy videos and a song, and then I ended up forwarding them to my friend because I felt like really called to, and then it turned out it was exactly what he needed at that moment because God is good. So this made me giggle. But yeah, okay, so I'll give you like a small summary of what it was from what I can remember. I lived in Rome, and I grew up with a dad who was like really, really temperamental, and he would go like through different mood swings and would go from like basically he would just get mad for no reason because he had gone to war and had like really severe PTSD and like didn't get it treated. So he would just get really mad at me and my siblings, and like I would basically try to make myself feel small or like try to act small so that way I wouldn't get in the way and I wouldn't get yelled at. And he um, would still find a reason to get mad at me. And basically told me like growing up that I was never going to achieve anything and like like all this stuff. I think that was part of it. And every day I would go by this I would go by like this building, like they were, so it was like BC Rome, and basically they were like building the I forgot what they're called, moats, like for water and stuff like that, like the waterways. And so I would like watch these architects like work on this stuff, and it really, really fascinated me. And then as I got older, I ended up finally going and talking to the architects and becoming friends with them. And the main one that I ended up like being mentored by is supposed to be like my older brother in this life, which actually makes a lot of sense because he is my mentor in this life. And so then I ended up working with them and found out that like I'm really good at figuring out what people's strengths are and being a leader and showing them like being like, oh, you're going to do well here. You're going to do well here. And so I ended up leaving home, and my dad got really, really mad because he always said that, um, like once I left home that I was never going to come back and all this stuff. And then I like basically left and just like created a whole new life for myself and became like a really, um, strong architect and ended up dying because a like architectural pole fell on me. Like I can't think of the name of it right now. Like a post. Um, so yeah. Um, yeah, I forgot what it was called, but it was back in Italy. So ended up doing that in a past life regression, and basically the reason that that was like the most important one that I would learn of was because my whole existence or my whole reason for existence in that life was to learn how to be free. And he was like, freedom has no bounds, it has no boxes, it has no limits. And so the reason that that past life was so important to the one that I'm in now is because the main lesson that I'm trying to learn in this life is how to be free, how to speak up for myself, and all that. And just like do whatever I want, whenever I want, and be good at it and understand that there is no limit to what I can be and what I can do. So, yeah, that was a past life regression that I did at Body, Mind, Spirit Expo years ago. And it was just like so, so cool. It definitely resonated. Um, but yeah, so okay, so I have some Reddit posts for you and then we'll wrap up. So this one is from the subreddit Past Lives. It's from Angelic Realm 888, and I haven't read these yet, so hopefully they're good. It says, my past life regression. I had my past life regression hypnosis back in 2021. I have had several other sessions before. However, for the first time, the theme of a PLR session did not revolve around the church or a relationship with my father. This was something completely new. I lived in a rural area in 16th century Flanders. In this lifetime, I was someone simple, for a lack of better term. I could not quite point to what it was, but my understanding of things was limited, so I assumed that I had some sort of mental disability. This impediment did not keep me from doing chores and following tasks, but I could tell that I was gullible and easy to manipulate. This eventually led to my demise. I was summoned to a castle, probably the residence of a local lord, and the trip took long enough for me to have to sleep outdoors before getting there. Little things like the blue sky and the greenery of the forest amazed me during the trip, although I am sure I was used to them. When I got to the castle, a well dressed lady who was very commanding and frightening gave me a bundle and told me to bury it in the forest without looking at it. Before burying the bundle, I peeked and realized that it was a dead baby. Surprisingly enough, seeing the dead body did not scare me as much as the lady of the house had scared me. Perhaps the dead infant was not an uncommon sight. Fast forward an unknown amount of time, and I found myself in some sort of dungeon or jail cell. It was dark and damp. I did not have the use of my arms or legs, although they were not bound, so I assumed that I had been tortured and my limbs were broken. Still, I was concentrating on the pain or general fear of my predicament, but I was not concentrating on that, but on the cell itself, wondering who built it and why they had built it in such a way. Forward in time again, and it was time my execution. I was tied to a post in a clear day, and there was a masked man with a blunt object. People were gathered around and were cheering the executioner. I concluded that I had been accused of foul play with the dead baby or had been set up as the fall guy. However, my mind was on the majestic blue sky that I was contemplating that morning. Nature is truly magnificent. So that was the first one. Okay, the second one is from the same subreddit. It's by Love Kiera. Does anyone else feel like they knew their pet in the past life? I haven't had any flashbacks or memories of my past life with him, but it genuinely feels like I knew him in a past life. He was my childhood pet, and as I became older and I grew closer with him, as I started to take care of him and spend time with him, 13 years go by and he starts to have problems with his anal region, always biting at it. I had been begging my parents to take him to the vet because he had been sitting awkwardly and I knew that something was wrong. One day we made eye contact and I felt something that I had never felt before. I felt a sense of very deep connection with him, as if he was talking to me telepathically. Something told me his time was with us was almost up, and so I started spending every day with him. He only got worse. The vet told us that he had cancer, so we had to get him euthanized a couple months after I had that moment with him. What I'm trying to ask is, how do I know if I knew him in another life? Is there a medium that I can talk to? Is there something that can trigger a past life memory with him? I'm convinced that I knew him in another life. Yeah, I definitely feel like I have met at least my Elvis, my baby. I feel like we've definitely lived a lot of lives together. And he's looking at me now. He's saying I love you with the slow blink. And I've definitely, you can call me crazy, but I've definitely spoken to him telepathically whenever I was tripping on mushrooms. I was rubbing his belly and I slowly said, I love you without like me saying it. It was like he was saying it, but it came out of my mouth. So he's definitely, he's my big man. And I think, he's more important to me than like just that. And I've wondered if my childhood cat has reincarnated into the cat that I have now, so that we could actually spend proper time together because she's such a love bug. But I don't know. But I love her. Anyway, so here's the next one. Past, it's same subreddit. This is by Brooke E. Louie. Inexplicable clarity. This happened last weekend and it's still taking up space in my mind, so here I am. My family went to a museum and walked through an exhibit about the women's suffrage movement in the United States. There were grainy photographs of women with soft collars and clenched jaws, letters scrawled in looping cursive, and a replica jail cell you could walk through, with ambient sounds of iron doors closing and someone coughing faintly from a speaker overhead. It was quiet, the kind of reverent quiet you don't notice until someone whispers and it feels like shouting. I wandered through slowly, trailing behind my grandpa and little cousin, reading placards and timelines until I stopped at one sign in particular. It was simple, white block letters on a red backdrop. Would you go to jail for a cause? And instantly, before I even had the chance to think, I heard it in my head, firm and immediate, like the thought had already been waiting for me. I have. Not I would, not even I think I could, just I have, like a truth tucked deep in the marrow of my bones. I went still, that kind of still where everything tilts. I wasn't scared exactly, just unnerved. The conviction was so strong, so complete that it eclipsed logic. I knew in that second with absolute certainty that I had once sat in jail for a jail cell for something that mattered, that I had made that choice willingly. And then, just as quickly, reality reasserted itself. I've never been arrested, and I've never even gotten detention. I stood there blinking, heart suddenly loud in my ears, and tried to shake the static buzzing at the edge of the moment. I didn't see a past life flash before my eyes or anything, no cinematic montage, no sepia toned memory. There was a hazy weight in my chest, a soft, lingering knowing. If anything, it felt like the 1970s. I don't know why, I couldn't tell you where that came from, just this vague impression of protest, of heat, of rubber soles on pavement, and voices shouting just out of earshot. I didn't say anything to my family. What was I supposed to say? Hey, I think I went to jail in a previous life for the Equal Rights Amendment. Pass the hand sanitizer. But it stuck with me, the intensity of it. Like somewhere in another timeline, I've already answered that question. Has anyone else experienced such intense clarity? Hmm? Um, I feel like I've definitely had that connection. I know that I lived in the 60s and 70s, and I know that I lived in Egyptian time. Also, I think it's the 1920s fire from whenever all those women were working in the building. And they had to like that always resonated with me. I think it was like a newspaper place, 1920s fire women. I think that's what it is. Let's see. Oh yeah, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. Um, I whenever I learned about this, I I don't know. I just felt like so extremely like connected to it. I don't know why. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Something about that just really, really stuck with me. Whew. Anyways, here is the very last past life. It's from Strike Acrobatic 9067. My daughter's past lives died in Mount St. Helens and Mars. When she was 2.5 to 3 years old, she was obsessed with volcanoes. We borrowed a lot of books about volcanoes at the library. Huh, I feel that I was too. Like learning about Pompeii. Oh, I had like such a fascination with that. That and World War II. Very, very fascinated with that as well. In 2023 Christmas, we gifted her a National Geographic STEM volcano set. Her obsession with volcanoes was fascinating. I read one of the books to her and said, Mama, and she said, Mama, I died there. She pointed at Mount Helens. I was just stunned. I didn't know what to say. I thought maybe that she just had a wild imagination. Our family is Catholic. My husband and I are both practicing Catholic, so the whole notion of reincarnation does not fit in. Anyways, I asked her, what made you say that? Can you tell me what happened? My daughter said, I died there, right there. The volcano boomed, a lot of smokes and ashes. Also, my daughter has a port wine stain birthmark on the right side of her face. I thought she might have sustained the injury from the event. I also have a very interesting birthmark, and I won't say where or what it looks like, but it's very large. And I've always wondered about that because there's a dream that I had of a past life that actually resonates with it, and it like looks like in that dream I got shot. Um, but other people say it looks more like I got electrocuted. So, anyways, about a month ago, she told me another story. She's turning 4 in a few weeks. This time, she is obsessed with space and planets. She can name all the planets in our solar system, and her favorite at the moment is Saturn because it has rings. She recently told me that she lived on Mars. I was curious, so I probed for questions. She said that a lot of people died on Mars. There was a big bomb and it killed the planet. I've heard about that. There's like a theory that we actually have already lived on Mars and that we ended up destroying that planet. And that's why we came to Earth. I've heard that theory. I was curious, so I probed for questions. She said that a lot of people, oh, yeah. That it killed the planet. The sky turned red. She said there were survivors and left Mars for other planets. She said that she was rescued, but her whole family died. She said she had siblings and a mother and a father. She said that she was very sad because she had to leave. She said the people I don't know. Okay. She just keeps saying she said. She said that the people who rescued her were very kind to her. She visited other planets with them. She mentioned that Neptune is very windy. She said she likes Jupiter a lot. The others left for other places and some came to Earth. At first I thought, wow, she has a creative mind. Then my mom gave us a book about planets and I gave it a read. It mentioned Neptune and Uranus are both very windy and icy. I thought of my daughter's little story. Anyways, I did my research on Mars lately because her story was interesting. I landed on Joe McMoneagle. Moneagle? Both Jesse Michaels and Sean Ryan interviewed the man. I gave it a listen and my jaw dropped. We are a religious family. I'm open minded and same with my husband. We have no words but just shocked. I'm definitely having an awakening because if those things are real and did happen, humanity needs to know, and it's time to wake up. We need to know our real history so that we can better help our planet. Anybody with a past life on Mars, please do share. Hmm. Yeah, she definitely woke up. She's like, we have to wake up. We have to wake. Yeah, girl, we know. We'll get there. We'll get there. That's so funny. It's so I've been that too. Yeah. But anyways, so let me close up. So my gratitude for this week. I've been dancing in the morning and I've been laughing a lot more. And I'm also just really thankful that I got fed at work this week because it was absolutely wonderful. And I'm just so thankful for the people that I work with. And that I can be genuine and authentic and have all of the laughs and the giggles. Um, and I'm just so thankful. Um, and if you look online for different states that you've lived in, you can also see if you have unclaimed property. So you might get a check in the mail. Who knows? If you find unclaimed property with your name on it from different state websites, make sure it's a government website. I'm pretty sure. I think it's like .gov. Then you might have some unclaimed property, and as long as you can prove that you lived at those places and that you are the person that you say that you are, Who knows? Maybe you can find some money. As well, the songs for this week include Cool Doug at Night by Sammy Ray and the Friends and Jacob Jeffries, which is such a funky song. Also, oh man, I should put that one on there. One that I've been doing is it's like pop lock. Let me look. I'm just adding this right now. Let me see. It's West Coast Pop Lock by Ronnie Hudson. Oh man, I've been vibing to that song a lot lately. So I'm gonna add that. And then also Lucky Man by Courtney John. So I'll add that to the playlist as well. Please let me know if you guys can access this playlist because I have been trying to search it and like add it as a link to the podcast and it like won't let me. So hopefully you guys are able to access the podcast because I do put all the songs on there. And honestly, I might add Hallelujah from Logic on there because I was just vibing to that song today and I just feel like it. So why not? So yeah, but the cool Doug at Night is a pretty funny song. So God bless me. So I hope that you guys like it, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. And yeah, I'll see you next week. So thanks, guys.